Part 1. The crystal spire floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a dead star that pulsed with strange light. Inside the station, 12 different alien species gathered in a chamber so large that clouds formed near its ceiling. This was the Galactic Council, and today they were discussing what to do about humanity. Hyunwoo stood alone on the speaking platform. He was a small man with gray hair and tired eyes. For 5 years he had served as Earth's ambassador to the Council. He had always believed that talking was better than fighting. Today, his faith in words would be tested. The council members sat on platforms that floated at different heights around the chamber. Some looked like insects. Others were made of living crystal or glowing gas. A few resembled earth animals, but with too many limbs or eyes in wrong places. Hyunwoo had learned all their names and customs. He had studied their languages and histories. He thought this would help them understand each other. He was wrong. Thelvos spoke first. The Prime Arbiter was a being made of purple mist that constantly shifted shape. Its voice came from everywhere at once, like thunder rolling across mountains. Ambassador Hyunwoo, the Council has made its decision regarding your species. Hyunwoo felt his stomach tighten. Behind him, Commander Ji-won stood perfectly still. She was a military officer, not a diplomat. She wore her uniform with pride and kept one hand near her sidearm. Ji-won had told Hyunwoo many times that the Council would never accept humanity as equals. She had wanted Earth to prepare for war. Hyunwoo had argued against her. Now he wondered if she had been right all along. We are listening, Hyunwoo said carefully. Humanity has colonized 50 star systems in 200 years. Thelvos continued. This expansion is unacceptable. It disrupts the natural order of the galaxy. Other species took thousands of years to achieve what you have done in mere centuries. This proves you are dangerous. Hyunwoo wanted to argue that progress was not a crime. He wanted to say that humanity had never attacked another species, never stolen anyone's world, never broken galactic law, but he kept quiet. The Council had not asked for his opinion. They had already decided. You will stop all colonization immediately, Thelvos declared. You will reduce your military fleet by 90%. You will allow Council inspectors to monitor all your worlds. You will submit to our authority in all matters. You have 30 solar cycles to comply. The words hit Hyunwoo like physical blows. What the Council demanded would end human independence. Earth and all its colonies would become prisoners in their own homes. This is not acceptable, Hyunwoo said quietly. We have broken no laws. We have harmed no one. Why are we being punished? One of the insect-like aliens clicked its mandibles. Your question proves you do not understand. The Council does not punish. The Council maintains order. Your species grows too fast. You ask too many questions. You refuse to accept the way things have always been. This cannot continue, Ji-won stepped forward. You fear us. That's what this is really about. Several council members made sounds of anger. Thelvos swirled faster, the purple mist darkening. Fear? We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We do not fear children playing with starships, then why do this? Ji-won pressed. If we're no threat, why cage us? Commander, Hyunwoo warned. He knew Ji-won was making things worse, but part of him was glad someone was saying what he felt. The ultimatum stands, Thelvos said. 30 solar cycles. Comply or face consequences. The council chamber emptied. The alien delegates floated away to their ships. Hyunwoo and Ji-won were left alone on the platform. They're going to kill us, Ji-won said. You know that, right? Whether we surrender or fight, they've already decided humanity has to end. You don't know that. I do. I've studied every species the Council has ever integrated. 3 of them no longer exist. 4 others are barely alive, their populations controlled, their cultures erased. The Council doesn't share power. They take it. Hyunwoo looked out at the stars beyond the crystal walls. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, his family, billions of people who were counting on him to keep them safe. I need to contact President Tae-yang, he said. The message reached Earth 3 days later. President Tae-yang gathered his advisors in the secure bunker beneath the World Assembly building. He was a practical man who had always believed in peace, but he was not naive. He had known this day might come. Show me the military assessment, he said. Admiral Subin activated the holographic display. The woman had spent 40 years in the Space Navy. She had fought pirates, rescued colonists, and kept the peace along humanity's borders. Now she might have to fight a war no one could win. The Council fleet outnumbers us 20-1, Subin explained. Their technology is more advanced in most areas. Their ships are faster and their weapons hit harder. In a straight fight, we would lose badly. Then we don't fight straight, said a voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned. Dr. Young-sik walked forward. He was the head of the Defense Research Initiative, a secret program that had been preparing for exactly this scenario. Young-sik was old enough to remember when humanity first met the Council. He had seen the contempt in alien eyes, the dismissive way they treated humans as primitive newcomers. He had spent decades making sure humanity would never be helpless. We've been preparing, Young-sik said. We have weapons they don't expect, strategies they won't see coming. The Council fights the way they've always fought. They rely on superior numbers and technology. But we've studied them. We know their weaknesses. What kind of weapons? Tae-yang asked. Young-sik explained. Some of what he described made the room go silent. Nanomachine swarms that could take apart ships molecule by molecule. Railguns that fired projectiles at nearly light speed. Stealth technology that made human ships invisible to Council sensors. Cyber warfare programs designed to infiltrate alien computer systems. This is insane, said one of the civilian advisors. If we use these weapons, millions will die. If we don't use them, billions will die, Subin countered. The Council won't stop with occupation. Once they control us, they'll slowly reduce our population until we're not a threat anymore. I've seen their historical records. This is what they do. President Tae-yang sat in silence for a long time. The weight of the decision pressed down on him. If he surrendered, humanity might survive as slaves. If he fought, humanity might die free. If he negotiated, maybe there was a third option. We refuse the ultimatum, he finally said, but we offer a compromise. We'll freeze expansion for 10 years. In that time, we'll work with the Council to find terms both sides can accept. We'll show them we're reasonable, not dangerous. They'll never accept that. Ji-won's voice came through the communication link from the Council station. They don't want compromise. They want submission. Maybe, but we have to try. Send the message. The reply came back faster than expected. Thelvas's words were simple and final. You have chosen annihilation over wisdom. So be it. In orbit around a dozen Council worlds, war fleets began to move. Hundreds of ships, each carrying weapons that could destroy cities, turned toward human space. The crews were told they were defending the galaxy against a dangerous threat. They were told humanity had refused reason and chosen violence. They believed what they were told. On Nova Sol, a farming colony on the edge of human territory, Governor Haiwan watched the stars and knew something was wrong. She had governed this world for 15 years. She had helped turn empty fields into gardens that fed millions. Now she gave orders she had hoped never to give. Begin evacuation protocols. All civilians to the shelters. All militia members to your posts. This is not a drill. At the terminus gate, the main jump point between Council space and human territory, Commander Ji-won's defense fleet waited. She had 47 ships against an enemy that would bring hundreds. She checked her weapon systems one more time and opened a channel to her captains. They think we're weak, she said. They think we'll break easily. They're wrong. Today we show them what humans really are. We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. But we're the ones who never quit. Make every shot count. Make them pay for every meter of space. And remember, we're buying time for our people to prepare. Hold the line. The first Council ships began to arrive. Ji-won watched them appear on her sensors like drops of blood spreading in water. There were so many. Too many, but she smiled anyway. All ships, she ordered. Activate the surprise we left for them. Let's teach these ancient fools what happens when you corner a young species with nothing to lose. Part 2. The Council fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 300 warships, each one a masterpiece of ancient engineering. They had crushed rebellions on 100 worlds. They had enforced the Council's will for thousands of years. Their commanders were confident this would be quick and easy. They were wrong about that, too. Commander Ji-won watched the enemy fleet on her display. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like a storm rolling across the ocean, but she had faced storms before. She had learned that even the biggest storm could be broken if you knew where to strike. Hold position, she ordered her fleet. Let them come to us. The Council ships advanced slowly, maintaining their formation. They expected the humans to either run or charge forward in panic. Instead, Ji-won's ships just waited, floating in space like patient predators. The Council fleet commander, a crystalline being named Velkath, studied his sensors with growing confusion. The human ships were not moving. Were they already surrendering? Or was this some kind of trick? He got his answer when his lead ships reached the invisible boundary Ji-wan had marked on her tactical map. The space around the Council fleet suddenly came alive with tiny objects. Thousands of them. They looked harmless on sensors, just small metallic spheres floating in the void. But when they touched the Council ships, everything changed. Each sphere split open and released a cloud of even tinier machines. Nanobots, smaller than human cells, programmed with one simple instruction: take apart everything you touch. They swarmed over the Council ships like invisible insects, breaking down hull plating molecule by molecule. Alarms screamed on every Council ship. Hull breaches appeared everywhere at once. Shields designed to stop energy beams and missiles were useless against enemies they could not even see. Ships began to come apart, their hulls dissolving like sugar in water. "Scatter!" Velkath screamed. "Break formation!" The perfect Council formation collapsed into chaos. Ships veered away from each other, trying to escape the nanobot swarms. Some collided with their neighbors. Others spun wildly as their maneuvering thrusters dissolved away. That was when Ji-wan struck. "All ships, fire at will. Target the ship still holding formation." Human railguns opened fire. These were not energy weapons. They were simple kinetic weapons. Massive chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. The projectiles moved so fast that they were invisible until they hit, and when they hit hard. Council shields flared and died. Hulls crumpled. Ships that had survived for centuries were torn apart in seconds. The Council had spent so long fighting enemies that used energy weapons that they had forgotten how devastating simple mass and velocity could be. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 94 Council ships were destroyed or disabled. Ji-wan had lost 31 of her 47 ships. By the numbers, the Council could replace their losses easily. But numbers did not tell the whole story. The Council had expected an easy victory. Instead, they had been bloodied and embarrassed by a species they considered primitive. The psychological impact was enormous. On the Council station, Thelvos convened an emergency session. The chamber was full of angry voices, all speaking at once in different languages. For the first time in millennia, the Council was afraid. "How did this happen?" demanded one delegate. "Our intelligence said the humans were no match for us." "They cheated," another replied. "Those nanomachine weapons are illegal. They violate the weapons convention of—" "They are not part of the convention," Thelvos interrupted. "We never allowed them to sign it. We cannot accuse them of breaking laws they never agreed to follow." The truth of that statement made the chamber fall silent. The Council had always kept humanity at arm's length, refusing to grant them full membership. Now that decision had come back to hurt them. "We should negotiate," said one of the more peaceful delegates. "Clearly we underestimated them. Perhaps we can find a diplomatic solution." But the crystalline Vectran representative disagreed. Its voice was like breaking glass. "No, we show weakness if we negotiate after a defeat. We must respond with overwhelming force. We must show the galaxy that defying the Council brings only death." "What are you suggesting?" Thelvos asked, though it already knew the answer. "Deploy the sterilization protocols." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The sterilization protocols were weapons banned by the Council's own laws. They were designed to kill every living thing on a planet, turning entire worlds into dead rocks floating in space. The Council had created them long ago during the darkest period of their history, and had sworn never to use them again. "That is genocide," one delegate protested. "That is survival," the Vectran countered. "If we do not crush humanity now, they will grow stronger. In a century, they might be strong enough to challenge us. In 2 centuries, they might replace us. We must end this threat while we still can." The vote was taken. It passed by a narrow margin. The Council would deploy weapons they had condemned other species for even contemplating. They would become the monsters they claimed to protect the galaxy from, but none of them saw the irony. On Earth, President Tae-Yang received the intelligence report from his spies. Human agents had infiltrated Council space years ago, posing as traders and researchers. Now those agents sent word of what was coming. "Planet killer weapons," Tae-Yang said quietly. "They're actually going to do it." Dr. Youngsik sat across from him. The old scientist looked tired. He had created weapons to defend humanity, but now he faced the reality of what war truly meant. "We need a new strategy. We cannot just defend. If we wait for them to come to us, they will destroy world after world until we have nothing left. What do you propose? We take the war to them, but not the way they expect. We do not attack military targets. We attack their propaganda. Young Sik explained his plan. The council controlled its member species through carefully crafted lies. They told their people that the council protected them, that the council was wise and benevolent. Most council citizens had never questioned this because they had never seen evidence to the contrary. We show them the truth, Young Sik said. We show them what their government is really doing. We show them the civilian casualties. We show them the planet killers being prepared. We show them that the council is committing genocide against a species that only wanted to be left alone. How? We send teams to infiltrate their homeworlds. Not to destroy, but to broadcast. We hijack their communication networks and show everyone what is really happening. Admiral Subin listened to the plan and nodded slowly. It is risky. We will lose people. But if it works, it could fracture the council from within. Some of their member species might refuse to support the war. President Tai Yang made his decision. Do it, and Subin, prepare the fleet for a counteroffensive. If the council wants total war, we will give it to them. But we will fight our way, not theirs. Captain Dongha received his orders 3 days later. He was a career officer who had spent most of his life on ships, visiting worlds humanity had never seen. He spoke 6 alien languages and understood a dozen different cultures. Now he would use that knowledge to try and stop a war. His target was the Eleni homeworld. The Eleni were a peaceful species that had joined the council seeking protection from pirates and raiders. They had never fought a war themselves. They relied on the council fleet for defense and believed everything the council told them. Dongha's ship slipped into orbit using stolen council identification codes. His team of 12 operators made their way to the surface disguised as traders. They carried no weapons. Their only tools were data chips containing footage from the war. The footage showed the Battle of Terminus Gate from multiple angles. It showed council ships attacking human colonies. Most importantly, it showed the aftermath of the sterilization protocol tests. The council had tested their planet-killer weapons on an uninhabited world, turning it into a lifeless cinder. The footage showed the weapon in action, and the council officers celebrating its success. Dongha and his team reached the Eleni Planetary Communications Center. It was not heavily guarded because the Eleni had never imagined anyone would attack it. They slipped inside, overcame the few security guards without killing anyone, and uploaded their data to the main broadcast system. Every screen on the Eleni homeworld suddenly showed the same images. Billions of Eleni civilians watched in horror as they learned what their government was supporting. They saw human children running from burning cities. They saw entire colonies wiped out. They saw the planet killer weapon being prepared, and they heard council officers discussing which human worlds to destroy first. The reaction was immediate. Protests erupted in Eleni cities. Millions took to the streets demanding answers. How could the council commit such atrocities? How could the Eleni government support this? Within days, the Eleni representative to the council announced that his people would no longer support the war. It was the first crack in the council's unity. Dongha and his team escaped the planet before security forces could find them. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, Dongha allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. They had planted the seeds of doubt. Other human teams were doing the same on other worlds. The truth was spreading faster than the council could contain it. Part 3. The council troops landed in the fields outside Nova Sol's main city. They came in massive dropships that shook the ground when they touched down. Thousands of alien soldiers poured out, moving in perfect formation. They expected resistance. They expected fortifications. What they got was silence. The fields were empty. The city appeared deserted. The only sound was the wind blowing through the tall grain that still grew in neat rows. It felt wrong. Where are they? The council commander asked. He was a Vectran warrior, his crystalline body reflecting the morning sun. Sensors show thousands of life signs in the city. Why do they not defend? His question was answered when the first trap activated. The grain fields exploded upward. Not with fire, but with thousands of tiny drones that had been hiding in the soil. They swarmed over the council troops like angry insects, not attacking but marking them with laser designators. Every soldier suddenly had dozens of tiny lights pointing at them. Then the real attack came. From hidden positions in the city, human weapons opened fire. Not energy weapons that the Council shields could deflect. Simple bullets and rockets guided by the laser markers. The projectiles curved through the air with impossible accuracy, striking weak points in armor and shields. Council soldiers fell. Others scrambled for cover, but the fields offered none. They tried to advance, but every step triggered more traps. Mines, pitfalls, cables that tangled their legs. The humans had turned simple farmland into a killing ground. Fall back to the dropships, the commander ordered. But the humans had planned for that too. As the Council troops retreated, explosions destroyed half the dropships. The rest were damaged and unable to fly. The Council force was stranded. That was when the real fight began. Governor HFY watched from her command center deep beneath the city. She had never been a soldier, but she understood tactics better than the Council gave her credit for. The Council fought the way they always fought, with overwhelming force and superior technology. Humans fought by making the enemy's strengths into weaknesses. Second phase, she ordered. Release the civilians. The Council troops thought they were fighting an army. They were wrong. They were fighting an entire population. Sergeant Min Ji had been a teacher before the war. She taught children how to read and write, how to understand history and science. Now she taught people how to survive. She led a group of 50 civilians, none of them professional soldiers. They carried simple weapons, nothing fancy. But they knew every street in the city. They knew every building, every alley, every hiding spot. The Council troops entered the city expecting organized military resistance. Instead, they got chaos. Attacks came from everywhere and nowhere. A sniper would fire from one building, then disappear before return fire arrived. A squad would turn a corner and trigger a booby trap that had not existed 5 minutes earlier. Citizens who looked unarmed would suddenly throw homemade grenades and vanish into crowds. The Council soldiers were stronger and faster than humans. Their armor could stop bullets. Their weapons could destroy buildings. But none of that mattered when they could not find their enemy. Days turned into weeks. The Council sent more troops. They captured buildings only to lose them the next night. They set up checkpoints that got destroyed by attacks from underground tunnels the humans had dug. They tried to hold the city center, but snipers made it impossible to stand in the open. And then the sickness started. Dr. Jae Sung had been a botanist. He studied plants and how they grew. He had spent his life making Novasol's crops better, helping them grow in alien soil. Now he used that knowledge differently. He had engineered a fungus, a simple organism that released spores into the air. To humans, it was harmless. The spores simply floated past without effect. But to the Council species, it was devastating. The spores infected their respiratory systems, causing fevers and weakness. It did not kill, but it made fighting nearly impossible. Within 2 weeks, half the Council invasion force was sick. Medical officers could not understand what was happening. The disease seemed to target only aliens, leaving human civilians unaffected. Some Council commanders accused the humans of biological warfare. They were right, but proving it was impossible. The fungus looked natural. It grew in the soil and on buildings like any other mold. The Council committed more troops. They poured soldiers into Novasol like water into a sinking ship. 30,000 troops became 50,000. 50,000 became 80,000. The city became a meat grinder that consumed soldiers and gave nothing back. Admiral Subin watched the siege from orbit, waiting for her moment. The Council had blockaded Novasol with a fleet of warships. They thought they had the planet trapped. But Subin had been planning this operation for months. All ships execute the breakthrough, she ordered. The human fleet came out of hyperspace in a formation the Council had never seen before. Instead of attacking the blockade directly, they came from above and below simultaneously, using the planet's gravity well to accelerate to incredible speeds. The Council ships tried to respond, but they were positioned to stop ships coming from normal space, not from multiple directions at once. Subin's ships punched through the blockade in less than 10 minutes. They took heavy damage, but they accomplished their mission. Transport ships landed in Novasol and began evacuating civilians. Thousands of people who had been trapped in the war zone were carried to safety. But Governor HFY refused to leave. "This is my world," she told the evacuation coordinator. "These are my people. I will not abandon them while they still fight." The transport ships left with as many civilians as they could carry, but HFY stayed, along with thousands of others who chose to keep fighting. The Council had wanted to capture Novasol intact. Instead, they got a battle that had no end in sight. In orbit, the Council fleet commander made a fateful decision. If they could not take the planet by force, they would destroy it. He requested permission to deploy the quantum destabilizer. The quantum destabilizer was the Council's ultimate weapon. It did not just destroy a planet. It collapsed the system's sun into a black hole, obliterating everything within light years. It was a weapon so terrible that even the Council had hesitated to create it. But they had created it, and now they would use it. Dr. Young-Sik received the warning from human intelligence operatives. The quantum destabilizer was being moved into position. They had maybe 6 hours before it was activated. "Can we destroy it?" President Taeyang asked. "No," Young-Sik replied. "It is too heavily defended. But I have another idea. We have been studying Council technology for years. We have learned how their quantum systems work. If we cannot destroy the weapon, maybe we can redirect it." "Redirect it where?" "Back at them." Young-Sik explained his plan. It was dangerous and relied on timing so precise that a single mistake would doom Novasol and everyone on it. But it was the only chance they had. Human ships moved into position. They carried modified jump drives that Young-Sik's team had built specifically for this mission. When the Council activated the quantum destabilizer, the human ships would create a localized space-time fold. Instead of destroying Novasol, the weapon's energy would be redirected back toward the Council fleet. It was insane. It was impossible. It was humanity's only hope. The Council activated the weapon. Energy built up in a device the size of a city. Space itself began to distort around it. The process would take 30 minutes to complete. After that, Novasol's sun would collapse and everything in the system would die. "Now," Zubin screamed. The human ships activated their modified jump drives. Space twisted in ways it was never meant to twist. Reality itself seemed to bend and fold. For a moment, it looked like the plan would fail. The quantum energy was too strong, too focused. It would punch through the space-time fold and destroy the planet anyway. Then something unexpected happened. The quantum energy did not just redirect. It amplified. The space-time fold acted like a mirror and a lens at the same time, taking the weapon's power and throwing it back magnified 100 times. The quantum shockwave hit the Council fleet before anyone could react. Ships simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the atomic level. But the wave did not stop there. It expanded outward in a growing bubble of distorted space. Everything it touched was destroyed or warped beyond recognition. 3 Council colony worlds were in the path of the expanding wave. Billions of aliens lived on those worlds. None of them survived. The weapon the Council had built to destroy humanity had instead destroyed 3 of their own civilizations. On Novasol, Sergeant Minji and her fighters watched the sky turn strange colors. The quantum wave passed overhead, but the planet was somehow spared. The modified jump drives had created a protective bubble around the world. They had survived. In space, Admiral Subin counted the cost. The Council fleet was destroyed, but the wave was still expanding, and it would not stop for decades. 3 star systems were now dead zones that no ship could enter. The Council had paid a terrible price for their attempt to commit genocide. Governor Haewon stood in the ruins of her capital city and looked at the sky. They had won the battle for Novasol, but the war was far from over. The Council would not forgive this. They would not forget. "How many did we lose?" she asked her aide. 2 million civilians. Part 4. 18 months after the war began, the galaxy was bleeding. The Council had lost thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. Humanity had lost half its colonies and countless lives. But something strange was happening that no one had predicted. The humans were winning more often than they should. Admiral Ji-won, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, commanded the human space forces from her flagship. She stood before a holographic display showing the entire war theater. Red dots marked Council forces. Blue dots marked human forces. The red dots outnumbered the blue by a huge margin. But the blue dots kept moving in patterns that made no sense to traditional military thinking. "They expect us to defend our remaining colonies," Ji-won explained to her staff. "They expect us to fight the way they fight, holding territory and protecting what we have. So we will not do that. We will attack where they do not expect. We will retreat when they expect us to stand. We will make them chase shadows." Her strategy became known as the Chaos Doctrine. Human forces never fought the same way twice. One day they would use stealth and ambush. The next day they would charge head-on with overwhelming force. Sometimes they would flee from small enemy forces and attack large ones. They used psychological warfare, spreading false information and creating confusion. They made the council paranoid, never knowing what humans would do next. In one famous incident, a human freighter broadcast a distress signal near a council outpost. It appeared damaged and helpless. When a council battle group arrived to investigate, they found the freighter empty except for a recorded message. Guess where the real attack is? While the council ships wasted time searching the freighter, human forces destroyed a major supply depot 3 systems away. The council commanders grew frustrated. They had all the advantages, but they could not predict what the humans would do. Fighting humans was like fighting smoke. You could strike at them, but they slipped through your fingers. But the strain was showing on both sides. The war was costing too much. Too many people were dying. And within the council itself, cracks were spreading. The Eleni had withdrawn from the war after Captain Dong Ha's infiltration mission. Now 2 more species followed them. The Corvin and the Zelthi, both peaceful species that had joined the council seeking protection, declared neutrality. They would not fight in a war they did not believe in. Belvos, the prime arbiter, watched the council falling apart. For thousands of years, the council had ruled through consensus and unity. Now that unity was breaking, some members wanted to negotiate with humanity. Others wanted total war. The debates grew more heated, sometimes turning violent. In desperation, Thelvos began making decisions without consulting the full council. The democratic body that had ruled the galaxy became a dictatorship. Species that spoke against the war found their representatives replaced or silenced. The council that claimed to represent civilization was becoming tyrannical. On the Vectran homeworld, something unprecedented happened. A faction of Vectran opposed to the genocide of humanity launched a coup. The Vectran had always been warriors, but some of them still held to old codes of honor. Exterminating an entire species for refusing to surrender was not honorable. It was murder. The rebel Vectran seized control of their government in a single night of bloodshed. The old government, the one that had voted for planet-killer weapons, was overthrown. The new government immediately opened secret communication channels with human diplomats. Ambassador Hyun Woo, who had been held under house arrest on the council station, woke one morning to find his cell door open. Vectran guards wearing the symbols of the rebel faction stood outside. Ambassador Hyun Woo, one of them said, "We apologize for your treatment. We wish to end this war before your species destroys ours." Hyun Woo stared at the alien warriors. "Before my species destroys yours? You have it backwards. The council is winning." "No," the Vectran replied. "We are losing. Your species has shown something we had forgotten. Determination, adaptability, the will to survive at any cost. The council has grown soft over millennia. We have forgotten how to fight an enemy that refuses to quit. If this war continues, humanity will drag us all down with them." Hyunwoo realized the alien was right. Humanity could not win a conventional war, but they could make winning so costly that the council would destroy itself trying. It was a terrible strategy, but it was working. "What do you propose?" Hyunwoo asked. "Help us convince both sides to stop. Before there is nothing left worth saving." While diplomats worked in secret, the war continued. Admiral Subin planned the most audacious operation of the entire conflict. She called it Operation Exodus, and its goal was not to destroy but to rescue. 10,000 human prisoners of war were held in detention facilities orbiting the council station. They were soldiers, pilots, and Marines captured during the fighting. The council had not mistreated them, but they were still prisoners. Subin intended to free them all. "This is insane," one of her captains said. "The council station is the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. We will lose half our fleet just getting close." "I know," Subin replied, "but those are our people. We do not leave anyone behind. That is what makes us different from them." The human fleet jumped into the council's home system expecting total chaos. What they found was even worse than they feared. The space around the council station was filled with defensive platforms, minefields, and patrol ships. It was a fortress that had never fallen, but Dr. Youngsik had given Subin a gift. A cyber warfare package that could infiltrate council computer systems. It had taken years to develop and required detailed knowledge of alien technology. Now it was time to see if it worked. "Deploy the virus," Subin ordered. Thousands of small drones launched from human ships spread across the defensive perimeter. Each one broadcast the cyber weapon, trying to penetrate council networks. Most were destroyed by automated defenses, but a few got through. The Council defense grid began to malfunction. Weapons fired at wrong targets or failed to fire at all. Sensors showed false contacts. Communication channels filled with garbage data. The fortress became blind and confused. Subin's fleet charged through the chaos. Ships took heavy damage, but they reached the station. Boarding teams, led by Lieutenant Seo Jin, breached the detention facilities. Seo Jin had been an athlete before the war, known for her speed and coordination. Now she moved through the alien station with practiced efficiency. Her team had trained for months, learning every corridor and access point from intelligence reports. They knew where the prisoners were held and how to reach them. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters combat in narrow corridors where neither side could use heavy weapons. Humans and aliens struggled hand to hand, fighting with knives and bare hands when ammunition ran out. Seojin took a blade wound to her shoulder but kept moving. They had come for their people, and they would not leave without them. Dr. Youngsik watched from his station on Subin's flagship. He was not part of the rescue teams, but he provided technical support, hacking doors and disabling security systems remotely. As he worked, he broke into the Council's central database. What he found there made his blood run cold. Files. Thousands of files. Records going back thousands of years. Details about 12 species that the Council had deemed problematic. Species that had grown too fast, asked too many questions, refused to accept the Council's authority. And records of what had happened to them. 3 species were completely extinct. 4 others existed only in small populations. Their cultures erased, their technology stripped away. 5 had been integrated so thoroughly that they no longer remembered they had once been independent. Humanity was not the first species the Council had tried to eliminate. They were just the first to fight back successfully. Download everything, Youngsik ordered his team. Every file, every record. The galaxy needs to see this. The rescue operation succeeded, but at terrible cost. Subin lost 40% of her fleet. Thousands of human soldiers died fighting through the station, but they freed all 10,000 prisoners and made it back to human space. And Youngsik broadcast what he had found on every communication channel in the galaxy. The revelation was devastating. Council member species learned that their protectors were actually genocidal tyrants. The peaceful races that had joined the Council seeking safety learned they had allied with monsters. Dozens of species demanded answers. The remaining Council authority collapsed within weeks. Member species withdrew their support. Ambassadors resigned. Fleets refused to fight. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years came apart like wet paper. But Thelvos and the hardline faction still controlled the core military forces. They retreated to their stronghold systems, the original worlds that had founded the Council. They had maybe 200 systems left, but those systems contained the most advanced technology and the most fanatical supporters. "We will not surrender," Thelvos declared. "We will burn every human world. We will fight until one of our species is extinct. There can be no peace now." President Taeyang faced the hardest decision of his life. Human intelligence predicted the Council remnant was preparing Operation Final Dawn, a coordinated strike against all remaining human worlds. Every colony, every station, every ship would be targeted simultaneously. Part 5. The human fleet assembled at the edge of Council space. It was the largest force humanity had ever gathered. Every remaining warship, every carrier, every transport was there. But they were not alone. Ships from the rebel Vectrin joined them. Former Council species that had withdrawn from the war sent their own fleets. Even some of the peaceful races that had never fought before came, determined to stop the final destruction. Fleet Admiral Ji-won stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked at the combined armada. It was strange to see former enemies flying beside human ships. The Vectrin who had once tried to exterminate humanity now fought alongside them. The Eleni, who had never wanted war, brought their few military vessels to help end it. "All ships, this is Fleet Admiral Ji-won," she broadcast. "Today we finish this war, but we do it the right way. We do not destroy cities. We do not kill civilians. We show the galaxy that humanity is better than what the Council claimed we were. Every shot must be precise. Every target must be military. If you cannot be sure, do not fire. Understood?" Thousands of voices answered in dozens of languages. Understood. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. On the Council stronghold world of Kelvar Prime, Thelvos prepared for the end. The Prime Arbiter knew the combined fleet was coming. Sensors had tracked their movements for days. The Council remnant had fortified their worlds as best they could, but they were outnumbered now. The species that had once ruled the galaxy was reduced to a few hundred systems, and those systems were full of people who were tired of fighting. "Activate Operation Final Dawn," Thelvos ordered. The Council's remaining fleet launched from a dozen worlds simultaneously. They would attack every human colony at once, destroying as much as they could before they were destroyed themselves. It was not a strategy for victory. It was revenge, but they had one more weapon, something ancient and terrible that the Council had kept secret for thousands of years. A device built by the original founders of the Council, back when they had fought wars for survival just like humanity did now. A weapon so powerful that even the Council's own historians had tried to forget it existed. The device was called the Gatebreaker. When activated, it would send a pulse through every jump gate in the galaxy, causing them to explode simultaneously. The entire jump gate network that connected star systems would be destroyed. Every species would be trapped in their home systems, unable to travel between stars. Civilization would collapse. Billions would die in the chaos. It was the ultimate revenge. If the Council could not rule the galaxy, no one would. Human ships dropped out of hyperspace around Kelvar Prime. The battle began immediately. Council defense platforms opened fire. Ships clashed in the darkness of space. Missiles and energy beams filled the void. But something was wrong. The Council fleet was not defending Kelvar Prime. They had already left to attack human colonies. The planet was defended only by automated systems and a skeleton garrison. "They are going after our homes," G1 realized. "This is a diversion." Admiral Subin was commanding the defense of human space. She watched as Council ships appeared in orbit around human colonies. They came in small groups, not large fleets. Each group targeted a different world. It was a suicide attack. The Council ships knew they could not win, but they could kill millions before they were stopped. "All defensive fleets engage immediately," Subin ordered. "Protect the colonies. Do not let them reach the surface." The fighting was desperate. Human defense fleets scrambled to intercept the Council ships before they could bombard civilian targets. Some succeeded. Others did not. 3 colonies took heavy damage before their attackers were destroyed. Millions died in the first hour, but the Council was taking even heavier losses. Their ships were outnumbered and outgunned now. Within 6 hours, Operation Final Dawn had failed. The Council's last offensive was broken. On Kelvar Prime, Fleet Admiral G1 led her troops through the planet's defenses. Lieutenant Seo Jin and her boarding teams fought their way into the Council's central fortress. They expected fierce resistance, but most of the garrison had already surrendered. The Council soldiers knew the war was lost. Only the most fanatical ones kept fighting. Dr. Youngsik was with the assault teams, monitoring for any unusual energy signatures. His sensors picked up something massive powering up deep beneath the fortress. "There is something down there," he warned. "Something ancient, and it is activating." G1 changed her orders immediately. "Find it, stop it, whatever it takes." Seo Jin led her team into the depths of the fortress. They followed Youngsik's directions, descending through levels that had not been opened in centuries. The corridors grew strange, built in styles that predated the modern Council. This was ancient technology from the galaxy's distant past. They found Thelvos in a chamber carved from solid rock. The Prime Arbiter floated before a massive device that pulsed with energy. Around the chamber, holographic displays showed every jump gate in the galaxy. "You are too late," Thelvos said. "The gatebreaker is already active. In 10 minutes, every jump gate will explode. Your species will be trapped in your systems. All species will be trapped. The age of galactic civilization will end." "Why?" Seo Jin demanded. "You have already lost. Why destroy everything? Because you humiliated us. Because you showed the galaxy that the Council was weak. Because you proved that the old order was wrong. If we cannot rule, then no one deserves what we built." Dr. Youngsik studied the device frantically. He recognized some of the technology from Council archives he had stolen. The gatebreaker used quantum entanglement to connect with every jump gate simultaneously. It was brilliant and terrifying, and it was almost fully charged. "Can you stop it?" Ji-Wan asked. "No," Youngsik admitted, "but maybe I can redirect it." His fingers flew across his portable computer, hacking into the ancient device. The security was primitive by modern standards. The builders had never imagined anyone would try to modify the weapon while it was active. Youngsik rewrote the targeting parameters, changing the quantum frequency. "What are you doing?" Thelvos demanded. Saving the galaxy from your spite, Young-Sik replied. The gatebreaker fired. Energy pulsed outward through quantum space, traveling instantly to every jump gate in the galaxy. But Young-Sik had changed what the energy did. Instead of exploding the gates, it temporarily disabled all jump-capable ships within range of any gate. Every military ship in the galaxy, Council and human alike, suddenly lost its ability to jump to hyperspace. They could still fly at normal speeds, but they were trapped in whatever system they were currently in. The fighting stopped immediately because no one could escape or receive reinforcements. Thelvos realized what had happened. You fool. You have trapped us all. Only temporarily, Young-Sik said. The effect will wear off in a few days, but by then this war will be over. The silence that followed was deafening, with no one able to jump away or bring in reinforcements. Both sides were forced to stop fighting. The temporary ceasefire became permanent as exhaustion and common sense took over. The last Council forces on Kelvar Prime surrendered. Thelvos was taken into custody, raging about humanity's crimes until the very end. But even the Prime Arbiter's most loyal followers were tired of fighting. They laid down their weapons and asked for mercy. Humanity granted it. Human medical teams treated wounded Council soldiers. Human engineers helped repair damaged infrastructure on Council worlds. Human supply ships brought food and medicine to populations that were suffering from the war. The galaxy watched in amazement. The species that had been called primitive and dangerous showed more compassion than the civilization that claimed to be enlightened. 5 years after the war ended, a new government formed to replace the Galactic Council. It was called the Confederation, and it was built on different principles than the Council. Every species had equal representation. Decisions were made by consensus, not decree. Military force was used only for defense, never conquest. President Tae Yang, now retired and gray-haired, attended the Confederation's founding ceremony. He watched as Ambassador Hyunwoo took the oath as the first Secretary General. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, including former enemies who now worked together. Governor Haiwan had rebuilt Nova Sol. The city was more beautiful than before, with gardens that mixed human and alien plants. She had turned the battlefield into a memorial, where people could remember the cost of war and the value of peace. Admiral Subin commanded the Confederation Defense Fleet. It was smaller than the old Council fleet, but it included ships from every member species. Former enemies served on the same crews, learning to work together. Fleet Admiral Jiwon had retired from military service. She taught military strategy at the new Confederation Academy, training the next generation to fight only when necessary and to seek peace whenever possible. Dr. Young-Sik had destroyed all his weapon designs. He now led the Restoration Initiative, working to heal worlds damaged by the war. He spent his days making things grow instead of destroying them, and he slept better for it. Captain Dong-Ha trained peacekeepers who would prevent future wars. He taught them languages and cultures, hoping that understanding would prevent the conflicts that ignorance caused. Lieutenant Seo Jin became a diplomat.